Hi, this is Jamie Grunwell from GoSafety Solutions, and today we're going to talk about doing toolbox meetings. So if we have a look at our health and safety index, we can see that we want to be under the heading of information, training, and supervision. Now, if we go down there and look through the options, we can see here toolbox meeting form. And you can also see guide for toolbox meeting form straight underneath. So 4.0E. Now, if we go to our list of documents to 4.0E, we get the toolbox meeting form. So if we open them up, that's what the toolbox meeting form looks like. Now, it's one page. It's kept as simple as possible. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll show you now the next document, which is Guide to do a Toolbox Meeting. So if I open that up, you can see toolbox meetings are used to train, also used to give the opportunity for employees to have feedback on health and safety and anything else in the business. It's a chance to talk about a document or the health and safety system. It's also a chance to talk about incidents that have happened, any hazards that have been discovered in the business, or any hazards that need some extra attention in the business. Using the toolbox meeting form is a good way to document what you talked about during your meeting. So you've got evidence that you've talked about things, and you've also got evidence of training if you want to do training as well. So I think the best time to do a toolbox meeting is a Monday morning, first thing, and it's should be 5, 10, 15 minutes long. But it'll be as long as you want to talk about things or if something's happened in the business. So use the toolbox meeting form process to review health and safety documents, to train staff on health and safety documents, also the incident process. So it's used as continuous training. And if you're doing continuous training 5 to 10 minutes a week, that should be most of the training you need to do during the year to remind people about hazards in the business and review documentation. So in short, toolbox meetings can be used to document meetings, short training sessions, standard operating procedures, so writing those standard operating procedures or reviewing them, and even training safe operating procedures or standard operating procedures. Make sure you go to toolbox meeting with the right attitude, be prepared, and ask for feedback from staff. And if you get feedback, make sure you write that on the toolbox meeting minute so you've had feedback from a staff member and who the staff member is. This is especially important when you're reviewing documents or talking about incidents that have happened or hazards. Make sure you document everything you've discussed in the toolbox meeting. Don't write a big long story. I generally don't type it up. If you want to type it, it's up to you. But what we usually do is just write bullet points about what you talked about. Anything in a bit more detail, you just write a little bit more detail. If you run out of room on the toolbox meeting form, just write on the back. When you finish the toolbox meeting, ask everybody to write their name or sign their name to say they attended, and catch up with anybody who didn't attend. So when the next person comes to work the next day or the following day, say, oh, this is what we talked about in the toolbox meeting, go over it, and get them to sign and put the date that they received the information. The thing is with toolbox meetings, you can talk about things, but you've got no evidence that it actually happened. So when you're documenting it with a toolbox meeting form, you're showing that people have been told, people have been part of the review process, and you've got evidence of that. Okay, it pays to copy the completed toolbox meeting on the staff board or email it out so everybody's got a copy of it. and file them for up to 10 years. So the way to file it is you can take a photo of it and email it to yourself, or you can scan it and email it to yourself, and then just save it in a file. And I usually put the date the Toolbox meeting happened in a Toolbox meeting file. It's so if there's an incident or an accident that's happened in the future, you can show evidence that, hey, we talked about that and we did that training in the Toolbox meeting. So you should, after a year, or you should have plenty of evidence that you've reviewed all the documents in the health and safety system, and you've reviewed incidents, you've reviewed hazards, so you've got plenty of information, and you've done training on work safe documents, safe operating procedures, lockout, tag out, permit to work, etc. Something that's good to talk about every week with the Toolbox meetings is it's good to talk about what's happened in the business with health and safety over the week, and then it's also good to review a document and review the general hazard register. So review the general hazard register and just say reviewed hazard number such and such. See changes that have been made actually on the general hazard register, or you can actually write down the changes that have been made. So other things to discuss are new hazards and other jobs that require hazard ID planning. Discuss near hits, incidents, accidents that have occurred. See if there is any feedback from employees on concerns to management. So it's another opportunity to say, is everybody happy with how things are going with health and safety? You can talk about jobs for the week, production for the week, but it's always good to make health and safety the priority that you talk about. It's so it doesn't get missed, because quite often with production, we're thinking about just production and we're thinking about what needs to happen, who needs to do what. We're always going to think about those things, but we need to make health and safety first, so we at least cover all the health and safety items and then go on to production, quality, environmental, etc. So you can always open this guide to doing Toolbox meetings form up and have a bit of a look to refresh your memory on what to do. There's some other discussions, topics you can talk about. I've mentioned the health and safety manual, forms, monthly safety themes, safety alerts, meetings, chemicals, material safety data sheets, information off the internet, maybe an accident happened somewhere and you can talk about that. Introduction of new plant or processes, changes in season, because that can change being sun smart or dehydration or working in the cold, use of plant, handling of materials, codes of practices, guidelines, safe operating procedures. You can see there's plenty of things you can talk about every week. Right, so I'll just quickly go over this. This is just a little bit of a mock-up of how to do a Toolbox meeting form. Again, just write with pen. It doesn't matter how it looks, so long as it's readable. So you can see site, area, meeting, training held by, date and time, and what was discussed. There's a little bit of a prompt here. What was discussed, it's for evidence of meetings, quick training sessions, and I've just put a little note, handwrite brief detail to what was discussed. So you can see here, discussed and reviewed hazards on the hazard register, stress and fatigue and chemicals. Reminder, forklift has a lockout tag out on it as the mechanic is going to have a look at the brakes, so you can mention what's happening to a bit of plant. So you can have a bit of a read of that yourself, and you've also got here, there's a little heading, any feedback to management, so you can ask every meeting, is there any feedback to management? And you can write a little bit of a note. There's also a little section here on actions required. And that's basically if anything pops up in the Toolbox meeting and it needs action requiring, then you can talk about that action, and you can say by who, who's responsible for it, by when, and you can basically write a note go back onto the Toolbox meeting form and say when it's completed. You'll also put this information onto the incident and events register so you can track close off items. Because what happens with a Toolbox meeting is it'll go into a file or into a folder on your desk or off the side of your desk, and then you'll forget about it. If it actually goes on the register, you'll remember it and you'll make sure the items are closed off. I'll talk more about that when I talk about incident and event register. Okay, attendees to write their name or sign. If they sign, that's great. It's great to have their name written, the date and the signature. But if they just want to put their name and the date, that's fine. That's evidence enough that they attended and they were part of the meeting and they understood all of the information that was given to them. Okay, so that's how to do a Toolbox meeting. I'll see you in the next video.